Check the mic. Instant reaction. We're live. Week 3, as always, after the 4 o'clocks, before Sunday Night Football. I say it every week, Sam. A wild week of action. But, man, this week in particular, turnovers, key fumbles, key interceptions, blocked kicks for touchdowns. This week was insane. Where do we even begin?
Yeah, well, let's start with the crazy kind of historic freaky plays. There were fumbles and blocked kicks everywhere this week. I think we ended up with 5 blocked kicks, which was the most in a single week since 1991. 4 of them came in the fourth quarter. 2 of them, I think, were returned for touchdowns by the same guy that blocked them. The Jets game with Will McDonald jumping the line and then getting the scoop and score. And I think Jordan Davis blocked the kick as well, right? And then was the guy that got the scoop and rumbled to the tune of 18.5 miles an hour for a dude that size all the way to the end zone. So just insane plays all the way through the week.
All right, let's start with in the 1 o'clock hour, we saw the Browns lining up for a game-winning field goal, which was wild in itself. At the same time, the Rams were lining up for a game-winning field goal. Let's start with that. Eagles get the win 33-26 against the Rams. The Rams got up, was it 23-7 at the half? And then the Eagles, who have not needed their pass game this entire season, chipping away with little run game and attacking it with A.J. Brown taking over in the second half and others. Yeah, I got the wrong mic. I got it. Give me a second.
Yeah. For a decent period of this game, it looked like the Eagles were just going to lose, just get beat straight up by a better football team. Their offense got absolutely nothing going for the majority of the game. Hurts had 17 passing yards at the half. They couldn't score, and they couldn't really slow down the Rams that much either. The Rams were just better for the first half by a long way. And then as the second half went on, obviously, a big part of it is a blocked kick like that and returning it for a touchdown. But it was like an old school Titans game where the dudes took over, like A.J. Brown took over. Saquon Barkley made a couple of big plays. Like their freaky athletes started to out-athlete the opponent. And like when you sort of look through the Rams secondary, you're like, of course A.J. Brown is going to have a big game. Like they literally don't have a body that can go one-on-one with that guy and be within 40 pounds of him. Like Darius Williams is an undersized small corner, and he got mossed a couple of times. Emmanuel Forbes somehow wound up on A.J. Brown again, and we've seen how that went when he played for Washington. Like that guy is 80 pounds away from matching him. And he got wrecked.
It's easy to just the Eagles won, so let's jump to our conclusions. Hey, the Eagles every week I say they have multiple ways to win. In this one, the idea that with 17 first half passing yards, they could come back in the second half. A.J. Brown didn't have a yard in the first half and then 109 in the second half, including a touchdown. Eagles once again showing, though, they do have multiple ways to win, but so many of these games today, Sam, came down to such a fine line. I mean, the Rams were so close to Stafford being the hero, playing through his injury and, leading the game-winning field goal drive, which he set them up for. And so it was just a great back and forth game there. And one that I think comes back at the end of the season when we're talking about playoffs and seeding and is the game in LA, is the game in Philadelphia, like this one could really have a lot of implications come playoff time. The same time.
For the second time, though, in a row, like the Rams gave the Eagles the best game of anybody through that playoff run last year. And they should have won this game based off how it went. The Eagles needed a lot to go their way to finally execute the comeback. So, the Rams are not a team the Eagles are going to want to play again in the playoffs if they both get there. And, that's the pathway. The Eagles will be, I think, trying to get a pathway that does not involve the Rams.
I would also say, I know the Bucs are 3-0 and there's other teams competing for best team in the NFC. I would just say, hey, the Rams, who are now not in first place in the NFC West, they're right up there. Like they showed they could compete with the best teams in the NFC. And then the Cleveland Browns. I wasn't expecting to talk about this game on the instant reaction. I wasn't expecting to say much about this game tomorrow morning on our full reaction at 7 a.m. But somehow win 13-10. Sleepwalking through this entire game. When you got a 9 games going on at the same time, you don't pay attention to some. And this was the game where it's like, hey, it's, low scoring and Green Bay should be a much better team, but the Browns make the comeback. Jordan Love interception gives the Browns some life to tie it up at 10. And the Browns get the game-winning field goal after blocking a game-winning field goal. Just a crazy turn of events here.
Yeah, exactly. They get a blocked kick. One of the five we were talking about. Jordan Love also gives them a ridiculous interception where he just didn't seem to see, I think, Grant Delpit over the middle. That was huge. Like, it was a close game. The Packers had kind of gotten the breaks, and then they had the ball with a 7-point lead and, a drive, right? And that was the drive. They just tossed the ball right back to Cleveland. Suddenly the Browns score, and we've got a razor-thin game now with no margin for error. Like, Green Bay had a chance to take control of the game and didn't do it. They also had, Josh Jacobs fumbles the football, and the refs decided to take a look at it and don't give it to Cleveland because apparently there was no clear recovery by the Browns. That was where they then don't get the kick. That was like a ball don't lie moment, right?
Yeah,
the Browns should have got that ball back. They didn't, and then they don't get punished for it. But this was like the Browns' defensive line was amazing again. This has been a couple of weeks where they've done that and destroyed. Look, Green Bay's offensive line was already banged up, got more banged up during the game. So there's a little bit of a caveat, but I think this Browns defensive line is going to be a major problem for pretty much everybody.
3 weeks in, the Browns have played Joe Burrow's offense, the Baltimore Ravens, and then the Green Bay Packers, who are rolling. They've allowed 204 yards per game. That's it. Not passing, not rushing, 204 total, the Browns defense through 3 weeks. They gave up over 40 points last week because of defensive touchdowns, short fields, and maybe that helps the yardage total as well. But the Browns defense is legit, and they will keep the Browns in every game as they did a couple of years ago. So they've got their first win. They're 1-2. Disappointing game for the Packers, where and for people picking the Packers in Survivor, because the Packers fall to 2-1, and they might look back at that schedule, at that game, and say, "Hey, obviously we let that one get away with the actual plays that happened." But of course, they should beat the Cleveland Browns. How about the other 1:00 game? So many of them. Jacksonville Jaguars 17-10 over the Houston Texans. Felt like another game. By the way, this whole day, right? So some of the experiences, what we're watching and what's happening at the same time, I feel like every single quarterback tried to give these games away. Outside of the blowouts, every single quarterback had these untimely interceptions, untimely fumbles, and this one, C.J. Stroud and Trevor Lawrence trading untimely interceptions. But in this defensive struggle, the Jags get the win 17-10. They go to 2-1. The Texans are still winless here at 0-3. Was not expecting that this season.
No, absolutely. And another one where, close game. It looked like maybe Houston was going to, Trevor Lawrence gives them an opportunity. It looked like the Texans were going to finally get themselves together. And then Nico Collins, who'd been amazing throughout the game, was making big plays every time he got the ball, breaks the tackle and then fumbles it. And then you've got, almost immediately after that, you get, we'd spent the entire first 3 weeks of the season be like, where is Brian Thomas Jr.? What's happened to the guy? Richard Sherman had literally just tweeted, what on earth has happened to Brian Thomas Jr.? And then boom, that's the one big strike over the top for a huge play. And that sets them up in really good field position. But Houston's offensive line is still an absolute problem. Late in the game, it was Josh Hines Allen coming off around the corner, around left tackle, the one good player that was there a year ago, to get the hand on the ball, get the hand on CJ Stroud and put the ball up in the air. And that's the turnover. That's the end.
Jags pass rush deserves a ton of credit for what they've done these first few weeks. But yeah, it's been a consistent issue with Houston and the offensive line this year. Pittsburgh Steelers 21-14 over the Patriots. Another game where both teams trying to give the game away, especially New England. 2 turnovers on the goal line. We have tipped interception for the Steelers, and then a fumble from Ramondre Stevenson. Aaron Rodgers had a bad interception in there as well, but Drake May, he fumbles the ball back, and the Steelers get the game-winning drive. Aaron Rodgers to Calvin Austin for the 21-14 win. Steelers move to 2-1.
Yeah, this game and the Vikings game, I think, were teams with just the volume of fumbles was absolutely insane. It was 2 by Stevenson, right? Another one by Antonio Gibson. They were just putting the ball on the ground every few minutes. And then the Bengals, I don't even know what their final tally of fumbles was, but it was absolutely nuts, the amount of turnovers they had in that game. Yeah, it's kind of amazing that this game was as close as it was, given how much the Patriots were putting the ball on the ground and turning it over.
And then you mentioned the Bengals game. Minnesota 48-10 over the Bengals. The Isaiah Rodgers game, Sam. a pick six, and then forces a fumble, punches out, recovers, and returns it for a second defensive touchdown. Had another forced fumble in there. What else did Isaiah Rodgers do? One of the best defensive games you will literally ever see. Even though the tip pass kind of landed right to him, great return from Isaiah Rodgers. I think he's going to win Defensive Player of the Week.
Yeah, I think he also had a pass breakup in there as well. He was pretty close to recovering the last fumble as well that had nothing to do with him, but just sort of bounced past him as it was live on the floor. I mean, I said it like after the first two of his good plays, he's going to end up with a 99.9 PFF grade. Red Zone was saying that apparently that's his first run grade, so we'll see if that holds up. But, I mean, dude, that's about as good a game as you can possibly have as a cornerback.
So Minnesota, incredible win for them. And, did we learn enough about Carson Wentz and what he's going to be able to do? Maybe not just yet because of all the turnovers. But, yeah, Cincinnati looking bad without Joe Burrow. Their first week without Joe Burrow. Other surprising games, Carolina 30-0 over the Atlanta Falcons. Was not expecting things to go that way, the way the two teams have played. I thought Atlanta looked great the first 2 weeks and were very close to being 2-0. And the Panthers were very underwhelming through 2 weeks, but they came out firing and did a nice job defensively against Michael Penix and company.
Yeah, I mean, getting 0 points, zero production is effectively against this Carolina defense based off what we've seen from them in the first couple of weeks, and even beyond that, if you extend it into last year and before they've made some additions, like that's rough for that Atlanta offense. You could imagine a world where Carolina has a good game on offense, because they did that at times last year, because Tyrell McMillan is a good player, because Bryce Young is capable of that kind of play. We've seen it, but their defense having that kind of performance is kind of crazy. There were a couple of plays here or there. Like Nick Scorton made a play. Princely Uman-Mielen, the other rookie, like suddenly we speculated those guys getting forced into the lineup because of injuries might be a good thing for this Panthers defense, and it certainly looked like it. But, yeah, that was a concerning performance by the Falcons offense.
As always with our instant reaction, Sam, we can't go through every single game. Just wanted to touch on quickly. Hey, the Colts are 3-0, 41-20 over the Titans. Washington got the win despite not having Jaden Daniels. They put up 41 with Marcus Mariota at quarterback against the Raiders. And then what we just saw in the 4 o'clock window, starting with the Los Angeles Chargers, 23-20 over the Broncos. I was calling it an MVP-like sequence for Justin Herbert, right? You got to be careful here. I'm not going to call him MVP. You say an MVP-like sequence from Justin Herbert, who had a banged-up offensive line, was under pressure this entire game, and he turns instant pressure from Zach Allen into a scramble drill touchdown to Keenan Allen, and then comes back with a beautiful game-winning drive to essentially score, 10 points in the last 4 or 5 minutes there. Great finish by the Chargers in an awesome AFC West back-and-forth game.
Yeah, I mean, look, Justin Herbert's been playing fantastically so far through these first few weeks. This was a game where he was under more pressure than usual as well. Nick Bonito was giving Joe Alt more problems than anybody has given Joe Alt in the NFL so far. He beat him at least twice, really fast around the corner with that crazy get-off he has. John Franklin Myers is getting pressure up the middle as well. Chargers offensive line got banged up, was missing a couple of players. That was a game where Justin Herbert showed that he can still step up even with non-ideal situation. And when he was behind, from a deficit, and make those plays. Baker Mayfield, I think, as well, in terms of the MVP race after 3 weeks, deserves a ton of credit as well. That dude, we went from look at the supporting cast around Baker, great offensive line, maybe the deepest wide receiver room in the NFL. We went from that to this offensive line is an absolute disaster, and his wide receivers are 2 rookies and his old college roommate. That happened in 3 weeks. And yet 3 consecutive late game-winning drives for Baker Mayfield. So that dude deserves, a ton of MVP credit as well. And then everyone's going to talk about Daniel Jones because the Colts are 3-0 because their offense is cooking. That's the one that I would at least point out. 2 of those teams may stink.
Hey, I didn't ask you to go through the MVP rundown right now. I didn't ask
you wanted to go there.
It's not what we do. It's not what we do at Check the Mic. That was my prelude to talking Chargers Broncos. You mentioned Baker though. That was another one of those crazy games where there was a blocked kick returned for a touchdown that looked like it could set up Aaron Glenn's first win as a head coach. He did a little dance on the sideline that was sweet to make it 27-26. But Baker, he is so cool and calm. 3rd straight week, the Bucs win in the final minute, the game-winning play in the final minute. So the Bucs are 3-0 with the 29-27 win over the Jets. Again, we'll go through everything in detail, much more detail tomorrow morning. The other 4 o'clocks to mention, though, San Francisco 49ers also now 3-0, 16-15 win over the Arizona Cardinals. Another one where both teams felt like they were trying to give it away. Both quarterbacks trying to give it away with safeties. Kyler actually running backwards into the end zone, but got away with it. A safety put the Arizona Cardinals up, but the Niners drove down. Mac Jones leading a game-winning drive, and Eddie Pinheiro new to the 49ers with the game-winning field goal. San Francisco moves to 3-0. Arizona's got to turn around and play now Thursday night against the Seahawks.
And the 49ers are dealing with this weird dichotomy where they're winning all these games, but each one of them is costing them important players through injury. Nick Bosa leaves with an injury, didn't come back. Michael Williams went down with an injury, did come back. So hopefully that one is not a particularly serious one. But, you know, on the one hand, as long as they keep winning these games, they're fantastically positioned, you know, for the season when these guys come back and can get their full firepower out on the field. But you know, they're not that deep where they can afford all these injuries long term. I mean, obviously they haven't cost them the games yet, but this is a team that wants to be contending, that wants to have a pathway through to a Super Bowl. I don't think they can lose their stars and have that still be a kind of realistic outcome for them. So at some point they need to get these guys healthy again.
Finding ways to win, but you're right. A lot of injuries in San Francisco still. Last one to mention, Chicago Bears 31-14 over the Dallas Cowboys. Really dominated this game. Dallas snuck back into it early, but the Bears ran away, man. Caleb Williams, 3 first-half touchdowns, 19 of 28 for 298, 4 touchdowns, no picks. Probably his best statistical game. I haven't looked everything up, but it is a Jared Goff-like stat line for Caleb Williams in this one, something Ben Johnson's familiar with. So the first time we've seen a start-to-finish game, I think, where this Bears offense did what they should as far as creating explosives and putting pressure on the defense, and really impressive game by the Bears.
Yeah, it's funny. You remember what last season, the way their season almost fell apart at that moment of the Hail Mary against Washington, where Tyreek Stevenson was like taunting the crowd and then turned around and was like, uh-oh, got back, actually ended up getting a hand on it and just deflecting it to a receiver for a touchdown. It was like that one play by Tyreek Stevenson like swung their entire season. This game felt like it swung on him just taking the ball away from Javonte Williams down the sideline. Honestly, Dallas looked like they were going to roll. You know, the vibes around Chicago hadn't been great. Dallas was having great success, and then Tyreek just rips the ball away. They go down, score, and suddenly the whole game has a completely different complexion to it. And Chicago looked really good. They started getting, Luther Burden involved. Every time he touched the ball, something good happened. This was just a really good performance from that Bears offense.
Burden had a 65-yard touchdown, 101 yards to lead the Bears on just 3 catches and another 7 yards on the ground. So that was the Bears team we saw in training camp, right? Where, you had Colston Loveland with a 31-yard catch. You had Luther Burden making plays. You had them spreading the ball around a little bit more. And Dallas defense hurting, man. They had CeeDee Lamb injured early on offense, but the defense is just – I didn't expect them to be this bad after losing Micah Parsons, but it's been rough for this Dallas defense. All right, so it's all we can do here. Instant reaction. We're in between the 4s and Sunday Night Football. We have Giants Chiefs, battle of 0-2 teams here coming up in Sunday Night Football. As always, the full slate will go game by game, 7 a.m. sharp tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Eastern. Check the mic. Give you at least about 3 hours, I would say, going through all the games. That sound good?
Yep, let's go.
All right, thanks to everybody for tuning in.